Hi all, let's have a look at another very exciting game from the London Chess Classic. Veselin Topalov was playing Vishy Anand in round 8. Okay, we have d4, knight f6, c4 e6, queen's Indian territory, avoiding the Nimzo Indian. Now the most classical response is d5. We have knight c3, bishop e7. Pretty standard so far. e3, c5. D takes c5, bishop takes. This has all been seen before up until this point. There's a large number of games with queen c2 here in Livebook. Now rook e8 is played quite often. Queen a5 is played. That's the most popular move actually, with over 700 games. But we have a rarer rook e8. White castle's queenside, very aggressive. e5, a forcing move. But is it going into a pin? Isn't this looking kind of nasty, this scenario where the rook is being x-rayed with the queen there, and there's this nasty pin? But black has d4. After knight d5, the usual move here is bishop e7. But Vishy plays something else which is rather remarkable as a kind of opening innovation, novelty, an opening novelty. So yeah, I think this might be one of the novelties of the month as far as Super Grandmaster games go. And it was actually found apparently by one of Vishy's seconds, probably using a computer, undoubtedly, but you know, assisted. Can you spot the move? I'll tell you the traditional approach for handling this pin is traditionally to play bishop e7. So for example, there's been at least 4 games with knight takes where white gets a small edge potentially. E takes, bishop g4 is a clever counterpin. So this, trying to sort of get some counterplay like this. And that's what's traditionally played here. But in this game, we see this novel move b5. And you might think, hell, isn't this really crazy? Because isn't c takes, the bishop's hanging as well as the knight? It might be undermining d5 though. Let me just show you some stuff going on here. Well, in the game, bishop takes f6 was played. Now, before we go on to bishop takes f6, if c takes... now, you might think taking on d5, but there's actually maybe an even stronger move here. Taking on d5, white might have bishop c4, and then taking here, and white should be fine. White should be a little bit better, actually. But actually, there's the idea of this innovation is a different move here. Can you guess what black can play? It's not taking on d5 with the queen. There's another move which exists, which I guess if you're listing candidate moves, you'd get this. Or if you're a computer. If I give you 5 seconds, what would you play with black here? Okay, it's actually the move knight a5. And it's relying on a fork actually. If queen takes c5, then there's knight b3 check. And it gets tricky here. For example, e takes, like this position. There's knight b3 there again. If king b1, queen d5. b4 say takes, we get a murky looking position where black, though this has been analysed with people with very, very strong engines within the chess-based community, should be at least equal here in this kind of scenario. Yeah, it's very, very tactical. If bishop takes f5, by the way, this is very good for black. Check. Rook takes c5. White's king is very exposed. Black is actually winning this. So it's a very, very interesting novelty, this b5 move. Very, very interesting. bishop takes f6 was played. G takes, and now actually C takes, and we have this little trick being used now with the fork. And you might think, remember D5 is also hanging here. So yeah, there's a preference, it seems, for knight a5 over queen takes d5. Probably like the previous line we saw. I think it runs into bishop c4. I'll just check 100% here. Queen takes d5. Yeah, bishop c4 first with tempo, and then taking is okay for white. Actually, quite nice for white. So that's why it seems knight a5 is like a key move echoed around here. We have e takes d4. You might also consider like b4, but remember we've always got d5, so yeah, it's a bit slow and weakening even more the king. So e takes d4 is played, e takes, and now yeah, this looks really dangerous intuitively. This c file, in fact, it looks disgusting. The pawn structure as well, treble pawns. Yeah, it just looks, why would you want to play this with white, with treble pawns and this kind of c-file with your queen and king like this? Bishop e6 threatening rook c8. It just looks ridiculous, and also knight b3. Knight takes d4, though, is tactically holding things together, believe it or not, for white. After rook c8, there's knight c6. So hitting the queen as well. Knight takes, b takes, queen b6, threatening rook takes c6. Now I think white plays one of the only moves to stay in the game here. This looks so dangerous. White plays queen a4. This just looks so dangerous. I think it is one of the better moves. On b5, a6, and this white's king safety is really suspect. That looks terrible. So we have queen a4 actually, giving up c6. But actually here, there's something where black can actually do something quite devastatingly subtle, which was missed by Vishy. He actually took on c6, which seems like really, really strong, because we're going to kind of, you know, chase the king surely a bit more when the king goes to b1. Actually, there's a really interesting move in this position. And you also might observe, well, there's taking here, isn't there taking here? But there's a subtle move. You might think taking on f2. What about just taking on f2? But there's actually a subtle move. Let me just check queen f2. I think on queen f2, king b1. Apparently that's okay. That's okay. But the move which apparently is killing for some obscure reason, you might think, okay, what would you play with black? I'll give you 100 points if you can find this. It's definitely like a computer crushing move, involving great subtlety. Okay. It's actually bishop g4. And it's horrible. Whatever happens here is just horrible. If rook d2, check, and the king's driven out, hasn't got a safe home on b1. And you might think, well, f3. But the thing is, f3 weakens e3, and this is with check here, remember. And the bishop can actually stop the king going to b1. And we've got now a new threat in the position for the threat collection, queen e3 as well as rook c6, queen c6. And this is just horrible, because on bishop d3, for example, now that the e3 square has been weakened, check here is crushing. If rook d2, like bishop d3, and if king c2, can you see what black has here, which is a killer? Okay, queen e2 check, just using the pin and picking up the bishop, you know, just pick up the bishop. Yeah, it's really amazing what a weakness provoking move can do. So bishop g4, I think it just ends the game, really. But anyway, we get a position after rook takes it. It's still very scary for the white king. Very, very scary, this position. Queen takes d8, relying on the fact the a2 square is covered here. So that queen takes c6, there's queen d1, I believe. And then we've got things like bishop a2 check to win the queen. So that rook is immune. Let me just check that. Sanity check that. I think actually that might even be stronger here. The bishop a2, bishop f5 check. Yeah, bishop f5 check. Because if here takes king a2, there's also queen a4. Checkmate. Forget about the queen, even stronger. Checkmate ends the game. So, yeah, that rook can't be taken. We have actually bishop e2. Now check rook c2. And it's still really dangerous for white, it seems. Rook d1, queen b6. Bishop g4. It just seems crazy, this bishop g4. Yeah, trying to deflect the bishop away from the rook. Check, defending the bishop here. And now king a3. Yeah, I mean, it's very tactical position. Queen e5 threatening, then queen takes b2. That's defended. Bishop g6. Bishop f3. Rook takes f2, now threatening bishop c2. It's at this point maybe white can play on with rook d5, but he didn't play rook d5. He seemed to ignore the bishop c2 threat. Rook d5, queen e1. This position, apparently white is not losing. Apparently we can say that white's not immediately losing. The evaluation here, it looks ridiculous thing to do. It's only slightly or equal. Yeah, it's incredible, but that would be just equal. So it seems the key move to stay in the game is rook d5. But what was played was actually h4. And this is very dangerous now after bishop c2. You might think the king is an odd place on a3. It really is, actually. After check. Now, this is all losing for white. Queen c3 is played. Queen b5 threatening mate on either a6 or a4. And white was perhaps relying on queen c6. But black to play and win here. Can you see a winning move for black if I give you 5 seconds to pause the video? So black to play and win here. Okay, rook takes f3 check. Yeah, if the pawn takes, we take the queen. And if the queen takes, then when we've done the drag and drop tactic, either queen a6 or queen a4 is checkmate. I know, it's another cruel game for Topalov, and he faced a major innovation, b5, but apparently he'd seen that early b5 at move 12 before. I know. I mean, he's apparently he's got a new member of the family. He's spending more time for family life, and he did win a game in this tournament. So I know he's had a bad tournament, but yeah, he's still a very, very exciting player, and I think with more focus he'll do much better in other tournaments. But he's a great player to have around. But yeah, I mean, there was a victim of a novelty here at move 12, and great play from Vishy Anand. Generally, okay. Comments, questions, likes appreciated. Thanks very much.